The battlefield was drowned in blood and smoke, the air thick with the dying breaths of the fallen. Skoga the Red, a warrior feared across the northern lands, lay among the corpses of his brothers, his body broken, his sword slipping from fingers slick with his own blood. The battle had raged until the sun fled, leaving only the glow of fires painting the night sky in hellish shades of orange. Around him, crows pecked at the dead, ripping flesh from the faces of men who had once laughed, drank, and sung by his side. But Skoga could not move. He could only stare at the sky, where dark clouds churned like the wrath of the gods. Then, the wind shifted. Cold, unnatural, the sky, thick with smoke, split apart. From the darkness above, she descended, a Valkyrie. She was not like mortal women. Her beauty was sharp as a blade, her armor glistening like starlight woven into steel. Wings, vast and silver, unfurled behind her, each feather cutting through the air like knives. Her eyes, cold and divine, scanned the battlefield, searching, choosing, and she had chosen him.
The call to Valhalla.
You have died well, warrior.
Her voice was neither cruel nor kind, but it echoed with finality.
Come, Valhalla awaits.
Skoga felt his spirit ripped from his body, his wounds vanishing, a forgotten dream. The pain was gone, but something inside him twisted, something that no warrior of the North should ever feel. Doubt, Valhalla, endless feasts, eternal battle. A paradise for the strong. Yet his heart did not soar at the thought. It remained heavy, anchored to something below. Then he saw it. Among the dead, slumped over his own shield, was his son. A boy of only 17 winters, his sword still clutched in lifeless fingers. His face was turned toward the sky, his eyes empty, forever frozen in a look of defiance. He had followed his father into battle, seeking glory. But his soul was gone. Skoga knew what that meant. His son had not been chosen. A warrior had to earn Valhalla, and a boy, no matter how bravely he fought, was not yet a warrior in the eyes of the gods. The thought sickened him. His son, his flesh, his blood was to be abandoned, left to rot, forgotten by the very gods he had worshipped. The Valkyrie watched him, her face unreadable.
The boy was not chosen. He did not earn the halls of the gods.
Skoga's fists clenched. His entire life, he had bled for their glory, burned villages in their name, sacrificed to their altars. And now they would take him and leave his son to darkness. His voice was a growl, low and dangerous.
Then I refuse.
Betraying the gods.
The air grew heavy. The Valkyrie's wings flared, her grip tightening on the spectral spear in her hand.
No soul may deny its fate. You will come, or I will take you.
But Skoga, even in death, was still a warrior. His fingers curled around the hilt of his sword, not as spirit, but as steel. The blade that had slain kings and monsters burned with fury, an extension of his rage. The Valkyrie struck first, her spear flashed like lightning, aimed to pierce his heart. But Skoga was not yet dead. He twisted aside, the weapon slicing across his ribs instead of through his chest. He roared, bringing his sword down in a brutal arc. The clash of divine steel and mortal fury split the night. Each strike shook the battlefield, sending gusts of wind that scattered the corpses like discarded dolls. The Valkyrie was swift, faster than any foe he had faced, her movements a blur of silver and light. But Skoga was relentless. He had fought in the mud, in the snow, in the choking depths of fire and blood. He had slain men who begged, men who screamed, men who laughed as they died, and he would not kneel now.
The final blow.
But no man can defeat a god. The Valkyrie's spear found its mark, impaling him through the chest. A gasp left his lips, his vision swimming, his strength fading like a dying flame.
You cannot fight fate.
She whispered, twisting the spear deeper. Skoga's knees buckled, his grip on his sword loosening. He looked down at his son's lifeless body, at the empty vessel left behind. He had failed him. No, he had not. With the last of his strength, he reached for his son, his bloody hand brushing against the cold cheek. A final act of defiance, a final promise.
The choice.
The world faded. He stood before the golden gates of Valhalla. The sound of war drums, the laughter of warriors, the scent of roasted meat, of honeyed ale. The promise of battle without end. It was everything he had been promised, everything he had been told to crave. And yet, beyond those gates, there was no place for his son. He turned away. The gates of Valhalla slammed shut behind him, the thunder of their closing shaking the sky itself. The wind howled, not in rage, but in acknowledgement, as his soul was cast back to the battlefield, back into the cold, back into the forgotten dark. But he was not alone. He felt them around him, the souls of the forsaken, the warriors the gods had deemed unworthy. They whispered in the wind, their voices small but growing. And then, amidst them, a voice clearer than any other.
Father?
Skoga the Red, the warrior who had slaughtered 1,000 men, who had defied the heavens, smiled. He had made his choice, not paradise, not the gods, but his son, always his son, and as the gods turned their backs on him, he turned his back on them forever.